I'm waiting for a party to break out. There's a great space for dancing right there in the center. We haven't had that before. Thank you, Erin. I thought maybe the bags are supposed to go in that center part. Welcome to the Rotary Club of York. We are a people of action committed to service above self and honoring the four-way test. If you haven't already done so, please take a moment to silence your cell phones. Deb Harrison will lead us in our opening song, America the Beautiful, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. President-elect Glenn Miller will offer the invocation, and Brian Grimm will introduce our visitors. Please join me. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon, friends. The great philosopher Woody Allen once said, "I do not wish to be immortalized through my work. I wish to be immortalized by not dying." Well, that is a wish that neither he nor anyone else can be granted. As Ben Franklin said, the only certainties in life are death and taxes. But what is not always certain is that death will be enfolded in the kind of loving care and dignity that every human being deserves. And it's for this reason that we celebrate today the work of Pappas House among us. Let us pray. Oh God, you create and you sustain human life. And when that life is over, our prayer is always that we will make a good death, free from pain, characterized by dignity, surrounded by love. We give thanks today for the work of Pappas House and all those who have dedicated their lives to this beautiful and holy mission. Be with our speaker as she shares the remarkable story of how this place has come to be among us. As always, be with us gathered here, bound together in mutual affection and respect, and united in the common mission of Rotary. To you, the one God of many names, we pray. Amen.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. I am pleased to have the honor of introducing our guest for today's meetings. When I call your name, please stand and remain standing until President Jansky can greet you. Visiting Rotarian Joyce Sandiaco, Uptown York. Guest of Joyce as well. Dr. Anna Bigford, guest of Tom Barton. Letice Brown, guest of Tom Barton. Sue Ellen Craig, guest of Jane Schussler. Ibrahim Farouk, guest of Tom Barton. Beth Gill McDonald, guest of Jody Keller, past president Jody Keller, sorry Jody. Stephanie Kessler, guest of Amy Anstine. Christian Nater, guest of Tom Barton. Madison Oagley, guest of Tom Barton. John Pooley, Guest of Albert Blakely. Am I saying that right? Sorry. This is brutal. Wesley Sanders, guest of Tom Barton. Linda Seligson, guest of Jane Schusler. Kathy Schaefer, guest of past President Jody Keller. Liz Schorb, guest of past President Jody Keller. And Suzanne Hershey, guest of past President Dick Hershey.
Ryan Grimm, ladies and gentlemen. You know, he just lost any opportunity he ever had of gaining John Polly's support on an event that you've got coming up. Sorry about that, John. It is so incredible to have all of you with us today, special guests of Pappas House. So great to have you here. And you're going to be the incoming president of the Uptown Club next year, right? So great to have you here too. And we have a very special group of people representing the Edgar Foss Smith STEAM Academy. Our Preserve Planet Earth Committee and the York City Department of Public Works has been collaborating with the school over the last couple of years on our PPE Kiwanis Lake Upgrade Project on an initiative to help monitor water quality parameters. So the Academy has just launched a new initiative promoting how stormwater drains into the surrounding neighborhoods near Kiwanis Lake and can feed all forms of litter and pollution into the lake and onward all the way to the Chesapeake Bay. There's information on your tables. These young people are here if you want to ask them questions. We have Christian, Abe, Wesley, Madison, their coach, Dr. Anna Bickford, and also a coordinator for the York City Department of Public Works. Latice Brown is here with us. Thank you all for being here. We know you're going to find this program to be very informative, and we hope that you'll plan to join us again often. Rotarians, please help me welcome our guests. Thank you. Well, thank you to everyone who collected plastics and brought filled bags today to give to CRDC for recycling. We have a total of 115 bags that were collected over a short course of about a month to make this happen. And I think 46 Rotarians participated in the effort. Let's give yourselves a big round of applause. Thank you. As you know, protecting the environment is one of Rotary International's 7 areas of focus. Your efforts demonstrate that you and Rotary members all around the world are tackling environmental issues, coming up with projects, using our connections to change policy and planning for the future. Our club has the opportunity to host 2 youth exchange students for the coming year, a young man from Belgium who will attend Dallastown High School and a young woman from France who will attend York Suburban High School. We need to identify 2 host families, those first host families for these students in order to proceed with our commitment, which is something we've not had to do before. So if you live in the Dallastown or York Suburban School Districts, or if you know of someone who does and may be willing to host that first 100 days of their visit, could you kindly share the information which we have on the tables for you, or contact a member of the Youth Exchange Committee, or Walt Tilley, our chair, is here. I'm just curious, if you've been a host family before, a host to an inbound exchange student before, raise your hand. Many, wow, many of you have. So I would ask you who are on the fence, take that letter that's on your table to get a little more information, seek out one of those previous host family members to talk a bit about their experience. I think that you would find it to be incredibly satisfying and rewarding, and I hope you'll give it real consideration. If we don't identify those first 2 families very soon, we will not be able to host those 2 inbound students. The membership committee meets today at 1:30 in the terrace room. The Preserve Planet Earth Committee will meet on June 8th at 8 a.m. via Zoom. And the fellowship committee has been incredibly busy. Rob Bowen is incredibly busy. We now have 4 upcoming events to share with you. A happy hour at Pub 28 at Box Hill on June 2nd from 5 to 7. A networking opportunity on June 10th from noon to 1 at York Water Company's Brillhart Pumping Station, which includes a tour and lunch. And this just added, a networking opportunity on June 14th from 6 to 8 for a walking tour of Lebanon Cemetery. You may recall our program by Samantha Dorm, who spoke about early African Americans buried there, including former slaves, veterans, clergy, doctors, and politicians. And finally, we're partnering with our friends from the Lancaster Rotary Club for a night out at Peoples Bank Park as the Revs take on the Barnstormers on June 22nd. This is a great way to get to know our Rotarian neighbors across the river. We're hoping to make this an annual event and look forward to reconnecting with them again in 2023 for a Barnstormers versus Revs game at Clipper Magazine Stadium. And I believe Eric has offered to do a behind the scenes tour for our friends and any of you who are attending that June 22nd game, if you'd like to get a behind the scenes tour of the Revs. We have great seating designated for us for that game. If you're interested in any or all of these events, please be sure to RSVP to Rob Bowen. And now for a member moment. Alyssa Barshinger joined Rotary in 2020 along with her brother, Jake. They are the children of Jake Miller, who has been a member of Rotary for the past 26 years. While she joined to establish good business relations, she's learned so much more about the important work of Rotary and its impact. Alyssa is a graduate of Spring Grove Area High School and Eastern University, where she earned a BS in biology. Active in high school, she was first runner-up in the Distinguished Young Women Scholarship Program, finishing first in the self-expression category. While she knew her husband in high school, they didn't start dating until they discovered they were attending the same university. However, they did star together in the high school musical Sweeney Todd, where they teamed up in a sinister plot on revenge, where Eric playing the lead role and Alyssa playing the part of Mrs. Levitt, who he ultimately in the show. If you know Sweeney Todd. It was love at first sight, I think. After earning her degree, she worked at Drexel College of Medicine doing research in the spinal cord injury research lab. She and Eric returned to York to start their family, and Alyssa taught biology at Spring Grove until the birth of her second child. They have 4 children, ages 6 through 13. Alyssa started managing rental properties for her dad, who owns several properties. She began by gathering the rent on the properties while her parents were in Florida each winter, and her involvement continued from there. Today, she is co-owner and president of Cedar Hill Real Estate. She manages 2 manufactured home communities and owns one of them with her husband. She loves to travel and had many opportunities with her parents while she was still in school. She has aligned her love of travel with her children, visiting France with the older 2 in 2018, with plans to travel to England and Scotland soon with 3 of her children. She just returned from the Odyssey of the Mind World Finals, where she led a group of 7th and 8th grade students who wrote an entire musical based on a little known historical figure in American history. If you remember that little Broadway hit known as Hamilton, you get the idea. They won the regional competition and finished first runner-up at the state competition, earning them an opportunity to represent Pennsylvania in the finals, where they finished 11th out of 44 teams in their division. The musical is based on Kate Warren, a detective in the 1860s who was an early feminist gathering intel on high-powered men, best known for thwarting the first attempt on President Lincoln's life. Apparently they're making a movie out of this soon. Alyssa, thank you for your involvement. We're glad that you and the Jakes are here creating a Miller family legacy for Rotary. It's great to have you. And now past President Mike King with new member inductions.
I think some were alarmed that I have been allowed at the podium again after absence in the past, but I promise to behave. It is actually my pleasure to induct 2 new members into our club today. First is Joyce Sandiaco. She is currently the president and executive director of affordable housing advocates, and she also has a huge resume of past community service, and I'm not going to review all of that, but I do have a summary of that, including, I did have a summary of that, including her service. Remarkably, one is her service as past president of the Uptown Rotary Club, which I think she now has to resign from. I told her that we didn't mind if she could join as many Rotary clubs as she wanted, as long as she paid dues to us, and we'd be okay with that. But she's also been involved, again, as I say, in a host of organizations, including on the board and chair of Community Progress Council, on the board of Leadership York, on the board of Better York, and other organizations, as I said, too numerous to mention. She's a graduate of William Penn High School, and also did additional academic work at that here. I'm sorry, and is also involved in the White Rose Leadership Institute, and is on the board of the Redevelopment Authority of York City. She is married to Jose, who was kind enough to join us here today. And they are the parents of 5 adult children and 7 grandchildren. And Joyce was proposed by Eric Chase. So please welcome Joyce to our club. Second nominee is a fellow I have known for a number of years, played a little golf with from time to time, Jeffrey Pugliese. Jeff, raised in Maryland, attended Atholton High School, which I had to ask him where that was, but it's in Northern Maryland. And then he attended Towson State University and earned a degree in biology as preparation for him to attend the University of Maryland Dental School, which he did and graduated from in 1981. Jeff has been a practicing dentist for some 35 years since then, but has now happily joined the among us of retirees. He served as president of the York County Dental Society in 1999. He's been active in the Presbyterian Church, both at Eastminster and later now at First Presbyterian in terms of serving on finance committees and so forth and so forth. And he was also, well, I'm sorry, and he basically practiced dentistry in York for about 35 years, and has now graduated to other activities, which I have a list of here, including most notably pickleball. And I think most relevant to his current situation is he serves on the board of the local York pickleball organization, which is a high honor indeed. Anyway, please help me welcome Jeff to our club. Make sure I didn't mess up your stuff.
I was coming for you if you did. It's okay. And now Christoph with the Communications Committee update.
Fellow Rotarians, President Jansky, I come before you all today to present some amazing things that are coming out of the Communications Committee, specifically out of our Communications Committee laboratory. I know that you didn't know that we had one of those, but we do. It's at the first post. It's in the back room, and we run up quite a tab there once a month. As a committee, we've been hard at work on new ways for us to, amazingly enough, communicate better with one another, the community as a whole, and to the future Rotary Club of York members. The progress that has been made on this committee has been done in large part because there's been an infusion of new members to go along with me, Heather Warner, Courtney Bailey, and Ken Cooper. Thank you to Gina Spangler, Andy Lynch, and Sarah White for some amazing new blood. We appreciate the help. So Rotarians, today I'm proud to announce that after a lot of work in the laboratory and working over hours and months and at this point probably years, that we are once again taking gigantic steps into the present. Okay? Now, whenever a great leap is being made, there may be people that are not prepared to take that leap. Why, you may ask? Well, I'm here to tell you that if maybe I'm not. If this is your preferred method of communication, you may not be ready to make that leap. If this is what your idea of a conference call is, you're definitively not ready to make that leap. If you have graduated all the way to cell phones, but these are the devices you currently carry, this leap is not for you. I'm going to go out on a limb here when I say that the vast majority of you are likely to have devices that are more like this, and they're probably in your possession right now. Some of you, as I look through the room, may even be using that very device while half listening to me. And I appreciate that because I'd like you all to have those devices in your hands right now. Yes, really. This is familiar to a lot of you, but if it's not, let me introduce you to LinkedIn. Okay, we're all there. I see a lot of nods. That's good. For those of you that do not have that on your device, make some time, even if it's right now while I'm speaking, to download the app, either through the Apple App Store or through Google Play. Why are we adding a LinkedIn to our social media profile along with Facebook? As a club, on top of service to our committee, we are definitively business focused. We are a business focused community. And for those of you that currently have LinkedIn, business is what you use that for. We can use this for club communication. We can also use this for trying to recruit new members by getting messages out to people that work closely with all of you in your networks. We can use it to network. We can use it for public relations for all the amazing things that we do for a club. And I'm going to tell you, I think that the most important thing that we would be using LinkedIn for is other stuff. We've got a lot of things in the laboratory right now that we are working on, and there are going to be reasons why this is going to become more and more important for us as we move forward. So please download it. Invite as many people as you can to follow us. I'm going to tell you right now, there's really not much there, but if they follow us, they can follow us. I did a test run yesterday. I invited about 35 people to join. 19 followed us within 24 hours, so you can all do it. You're all important to making this work. And we need you to, once you're following the Rotary Club of York, to invite your people to follow, as I said. One thing I'd like you to do, because you're going to say to me now, Chris, how do I do that? Well, and by the way, I do know that a lot of you have friends and connections, so don't play dumb with me that you don't have anybody to invite. This one's a little tough. You're going to open the app. You're going to search for the Rotary Club of York. You're then going to go to the Rotary Club of York. You're going to say follow. Then you're just going to share that and type in the people that you follow and send them an invitation. Write something nice about us when you do that. Don't just do the customary one that I usually get, like, hey, follow me. Doesn't do anything. Write something along the lines of, we've got an amazing group of people that you might want to be a part of, or things that are going on in York that you might find interesting. Follow this link and follow our club to be a part of this. So what we're going to do once we get to all this, we need to make sure that as a club and as a committee, we're being held accountable for the results of putting the time and effort into something like a new LinkedIn account for us. We're going to have ways of measuring success. As of this morning, or a few minutes ago, we had about 155 followers. In the next 30 days, the expectation is that we're up to 300. Within 60 days, we're up to 600, and then we're up to 1,000 in the next 90 days. We're going to work as a committee to put up 3 posts per week so that we're quickly building a substantial, and even more importantly, a significant content portfolio. The final KPI for us is that over the next 90 days, we're hoping to reach 20,000 people with our LinkedIn account. This endeavor is only as successful as our membership makes it. The Communication Committee requests that you make this a priority over the next few months, at least. We have number 2 coming out of our laboratory that I want to share with you. And Daniel, you're going to help me with this one. If I told all of you how much fun I had at an event that I was at this past weekend and left it at that, you'd probably have questions like, what event? Where was it? Who else was there? I'm sure there would be a lot of those questions. With all that being said, as a committee, Communications is more than willing to promote club events, show off all of our good deeds, and in general, let people know how amazing we are. But we have been looking for a helping hand. We can't do this all on our own. Our mission has been to streamline a process that builds in ease, is filled with clarity, and furthers the mission and goal of our club. As a committee, we're hoping to be free from the days of, why didn't they post anything about our event? By the way, the answer is because the email that came to us was, hey, can you post something about the event we have coming up next week? Now, we could have posted, John Doe has an event this weekend, and left it at that. There's generally a lot of information that we do need. Let's take a look. If you're on a committee or a part of an event and you want something put up on Facebook, on our website, you go to the resources area. Once you're in the resources area, Daniel will show you there. There's submit a Facebook post submission request. Once you click on that, you just fill out everything that is in there. And by the way, there may be things you're not familiar with. So if you scroll down further and further and even further, Daniel, give me more, give me more. There we go. There are things, keep going, keep going, keep going. There are going to be things that show you how to put the specific information in that we are looking for. That will make things a lot easier for us. We've been working on something this is going to be available to everybody. We're looking for you to tell us what you want on Facebook, when you would like it, but we do need the information from you. We've been trying to guess for years and we've gotten most of it wrong. So we do need a little bit of a helping hand as we go through. Use that information, pass it along, and we'll do everything we can to get that going. Also, if we do hit the 1,000 follower mark on LinkedIn within the 90 days, there is going to be a special happy hour that will be sponsored by Fox 43 that will be open to all members. And by the way, only if you're following us on LinkedIn, otherwise we'll kick your butts out of there. So let's make that a priority, and thank you very much. There we go.
Yeah, you did. Thank you. So am I concerned about what Chris was going to say and how long it was going to take him? I completely missed this really important welcome to our new members, Joyce and Jeff. Could you please stand for a second? Joyce and Jeff, if you could please stand for a second and just say you attended the orientation this morning. In fact, if you attended the orientation this morning for new members, could you please raise your hand? Many of you were able to join us today. It was a great orientation. Thanks, past President Josh George. Thank you so much for joining the Rotary Club of York. And as we mentioned earlier, your fulfillment is really directly tied to how involved you get. So we encourage you to take advantage of the many committees that we have, sit in on them, see what you think of them, and hopefully you'll join a few of them in the coming months. So thank you so much for joining our club. Can we give them a round of applause one more time? Oh my goodness. And great job, Chris. Thanks for all the work that you and your committee are doing in communications and bringing us into the current time that we are. Just like that, 40 more in the last half hour, 191 followers. That's right. Yes, drinks will always win them over. At this time, it is my distinct honor to welcome the first president of Rotary ever kissed, the first woman president of Rotary, past President Jody Keller, my hero, to introduce our program.
Well, I'm not sure what that was about there, Jackie, but thank you. That's very sweet of you. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, new members. Glad to have you. I am very pleased to introduce our speakers today. They are both accomplished women in their own right. They've come together, however, to work on the mission of providing end-of-life choices for families in York County. First of all, we have fellow Rotarian Amy Anstine, who you learned a lot about, like in the last couple weeks, because she in the member moment. So I won't tell you a lot about her, but I will tell you, in case you forgot, that she is a partner with RKL, serving family-owned, closely held business and not-for-profit organizations. And she has a passion for businesses in the senior living sector. She was born in Lebanon and came to York by way of York College. She's been very involved with the Women's Business Center organization and women's groups at her firm. She's involved with a number of organizations in the community, but is most proud of the work she's doing with Pappas House. And she lives in Wrightsville with her husband and daughter. Then we have Amy Jansky, who is the executive director of Pappas House. She's a native of York County, graduated from Southern York County School District in '96. She attended Penn State, graduated in 2000 with a bachelor's degree in communications, and she worked on various political campaigns while attending Penn State for a graduate degree, completing her master's in American Studies. Amy has 20 years of experience in marketing and development in the nonprofit sector, and she was hired as the first full-time executive director of Pappas House in 2018. She's a member of Healthy York Coalition Leadership Council, the Your Life, Your Wishes Task Force, and Leave a Legacy Steering Committee. And she resides in Spring Grove with her husband, twin boys, and many, many pets, including a few turtles. And in her spare time, Amy rescues special needs dogs and cats. So she takes care of lots of people and animals. Anyway, welcome Amy and Amy to talk about Pappas House.
Thank you, Jody. And thanks so much to all of you for inviting us here today. If you had told me 10 years ago that I would be working in hospice, I really wouldn't have believed it. 10 years ago, my grandfather was diagnosed with a terminal illness and he was signed on to hospice care. At 92, my grandmother had been his main caretaker, and she really struggled to wrap her head around not only the diagnosis, but his need for hospice. She really just didn't understand what hospice was. And to be honest, the rest of the family, we didn't really understand what hospice was either. To her, hospice meant the end. It was final, it was giving up. And therefore, we were not permitted to say the word hospice in front of my grandfather. She just didn't want him to think that we were giving up on him. But he was a sound mind. And when the hospice nurses visited him, their name tags read hospice. So it really was a pointless thing to not mention the word hospice around him, but somehow it made her feel better. So we entertained it. Then we began struggling with his round-the-clock care needs. And even though we had several family members helping, the constant need became overwhelming. So we reached out to hospice to request in-home help. And they very politely but firmly explained to us that while they are available to answer medical questions 24/7, they do not provide that round-the-clock care. Again, we just didn't understand hospice. So we were faced with hiring and scheduling round-the-clock caregivers, which was very stressful and daunting and quite honestly frustrating. But we vowed to be able to keep him in his home. Thankfully, though, after a few months, my grandfather's condition stabilized, and though his diagnosis was still terminal, he was discharged from hospice. So it wasn't the end. 4 years ago, I was blessed with the opportunity to become the executive director of Pappas House. That experience with hospice, as well as several others that we had in subsequent years, have stuck with me through the years. And so this is my opportunity to make similar times a little less confusing for other people. So if hospice doesn't mean the end, what does it mean? So hospice is a team of professionals trained to address the needs of an individual with a life expectancy of 6 months or less. This doesn't necessarily mean that the person is going to live for 6 more months, nor does it mean that they're going to die within that 6 months. In fact, if a patient's condition stabilizes or improves, much like my grandfather's did, they may no longer meet hospice criteria and they may be discharged. Further, if a person's hospice certification can be renewed after 6 months, and some people actually remain on hospice for years. So choosing hospice really means that you're changing your mindset from curing your illness to living with it and accepting comfort care. Your routines are going to change from being focused on lab work and tests and results and medication that's focusing on treating the illness. And that's going to change to focusing on how the person is feeling and medications that are focused on comfort and not on treatment. So how do you receive hospice? A doctor must certify a person for hospice and make the referral. And because this is such an emotional time for many, many of those individuals seek the advice of their doctor to choose the agency. However, York County has about a dozen or more hospice agencies to choose from. So if you have the time and are willing, that's a wonderful time to do some research and find an agency that best suits your needs. Once the agency is chosen, it's important to note that the patient has the option to keep their doctor, or they can change to the hospice agency's physician. So this means that all of the hospice nurses and the hospice team that come to visit you, they will seek approval and direction from that physician. So again, that's either your physician that you've had for years, or you can also change to the hospice physician that is knowledgeable in the area of hospice. Where can you receive hospice? So it's important to note that hospice is not a place. It's the care that is provided wherever the person is. That might be at home, that might be in a nursing facility, that might be at a hospital. If you're at home, hospice nurses will teach the family to evaluate pain and anxiety levels and administer medications. The family is expected to provide the round-the-clock personal care. The agency will send nurses and health aides, social workers, and other members of the team to visit at your house. They're a phone call away, but they are not physically there 24/7.
Okay, so Amy's asked me to help out with the piece on the numbers. So. All right, so according to Medicare in Pennsylvania, this is in 2020, there were 4,921,000 hospice days. The average stay per patient was 64 days on hospice, and they served over 76,000 patients. Now, these patients would have been seen, as Amy had said, from the hospice agencies, either in someone's home or at some sort of a health facility. The hospice agency has seen and has quadrupled since 2000. So it's seen a 400% increase. Currently, there are 4,840 hospice agencies in the United States. And I had on here that there's 16 agencies. That was prior to a recent merger. So as Amy had said, it's closer to 13 different hospice agencies that you can choose from within Pennsylvania or within York County. Most of these agencies are all set up as either for-profits or they can be set up as not-for-profit organizations. More than 65% of Americans will spend their final stages of life in hospice care. Of those patients, about 51.5% will receive that care in their home, with the remainder of them then receiving them either in some sort of a health facility of some type. Just a little background on facility costs. As Amy had mentioned, hospice is a care model, and as she said, the hospice agencies will send someone out a number of times during the week for a number of hours, but the majority of the care still is on the family members' loved ones who needs to make sure that there is some sort of round-the-clock care if that is appropriate for the individual. So right now, home care, if you choose to have some bring in care into the home care in York County runs about $24 an hour. If you're looking at something along the line of personal care or assisted living, that runs about $116 a day. And then skilled nursing is much higher. That's somewhere around $470 a day. Now, of course, that can be covered depending on what the financial situation is of the individual. So unfortunately, what happens is all of this information gets thrown at you at the same time that you have just realized or just had your loved one get the diagnosis of being placed on hospice or placed in an end of life situation. So other things that family members have to consider is, if you decide that, once someone's been placed on hospice and you're seeing that the end is coming, many families make the decision that they'd like to have their loved one pass at home and be around with their families. But, there are other hidden costs there that families need to think about. If they do require round-the-clock care, most families are two-wage earners, and so somebody may have to take family medical leave, which is available, but unfortunately right now in the United States is not paid. Most people also have maybe younger siblings or children in the household, and you may need additional childcare costs. There's also the cost of getting the facility, your home, ready for someone to come in who is maybe not quite as mobile as they had been when they had either gone to the hospital or had begun their decline. Some of that will be covered by Medicare. They will provide some things such as hospital beds or wheelchairs, but you will need to rearrange probably, your home in that manner. So, and then there's the unhidden cost or the really hidden cost, which is just the stress on the family. And what that does is that stress takes away from being able to truly be present with your loved one who is in their last days. So that brings us to the option which we're here to present or talk about, which is Pappas House. I'll let Amy then talk about a little bit of background there.
Oh, okay. Thanks. So if you don't want to pass away in an institutional setting and you can't, or you choose not to die in your own home, the other option in York County is Pappas House. So I'm going to show a short video about Pappas House to give you an idea and be able to see the house itself.
Awake one day. She was in and out of a lot of sleep, and she woke one day and she looked around at everybody in the room, and that was a lot of staff and volunteers as well as family, and she looked at each person in the eye and she was saying, "Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I love you all." Wonderful.
I think what makes it unique, especially in York County, is we're the only thing that's offered here as far as giving you a home away from home.
Pappas House is an alternative residence. So we provide the gap in care where a loved one might want to stay in their home, but they are physically unable to, and yet they don't want to go into a nursing facility. So Pappas House bridges that gap, and we provide the loving home environment for our residents while the hospice agency maintains their medical care.
And I think the burden of care is falling more and more on the family to take care of people, to be able to keep them there. So we found that this is not just for our guests who are at the end of their life, but for the families, and to support them and to provide them some time to be with their loved one without having to be so busy doing the care.
So Pappas House is the home. We're providing the round-the-clock personal care, the medication administration, and the family support for those who are unable or who wish or do not wish to die in their own home. Pappas House is the only independent end-of-life home in Pennsylvania. That means that we'll partner with any and all of the hospice agencies. The care is provided by a combination of paid staff and volunteers who are trained in end-of-life care. And by the way, we're always in need of volunteers. So if you're interested in helping, please let me know. Where hospice is the medical service. That's the team of medical professionals who provide the comfort care wherever the patient is. An inpatient unit, think of that as the hospice hospitals. So perhaps you've heard of Hospice and Community Care's inpatient unit in Mount Joy. This is a place to go to for a temporary amount of time to get your symptoms under control. If the agency doesn't have an inpatient unit, this service can be provided in the hospital. So while you may die in an inpatient unit or in the hospital, it isn't ideal and it is costly. Typically, inpatient hospice is limited to a set amount of time. I'll often receive calls from families needing a place for their loved one after exceeding the 72-hour inpatient timeframe. They're unequipped to bring their loved one home and to care for them and provide that 24/7 care, but they have no other options available. So anyone can make a referral to Pappas House. For admission, you must be enrolled in a hospice. Again, Pappas House partners with all of the agencies in York County. You must be in the last weeks of life and have no skilled nursing needs, meaning no trachs, no IV medications, etc. And Amy is going to touch on the cost of Pappas House.
So Pappas House is truly a grassroots, not-for-profit. It was started by our founders who had a vision and saw that vision through. We really are not associated with any of the hospice agencies. We, as the not-for-profit, are maintaining the home. The cost to maintain the home per bed is about $500, which equates to about what the cost is of if you had engaged home care in your house for 24 hours of care. What we charge or what we ask for any of the residents that come in is sliding scale. So it is based on what the family's able to provide and able to pay. The gap between what the residents are able to pay for the days that they have in our facility is raised through donations from the York community. York community has been extremely generous with our organization, and it has really embraced the concept, which is wonderful, especially since this is such a new concept. As Amy mentioned, there really is no other in Pennsylvania. So it was a completely new concept and new manner of looking at end of life and taking care of residents. Amy's going to share a few stories.
So who comes to Pappas House? In the last 4.5 years since we've been opened, we've welcomed 150 residents to Pappas House. They've ranged in age from 34 to 100, and our referrals have ranged in age from 17 to 100. Our average length of stay is 3 weeks, and our median length of stay is 8 days. So I thought I'd share a few stories with you. First is Lois. Lois was a 90-something-year-old lady. She was living alone. She didn't have any family. And the hospice agency, when they called about her referral, they described her as cantankerous. She was dying of cancer. She was very, very much alone and in need of help, but she was very stubborn and she didn't want the help. But reluctantly, she ended up moving to Pappas House. Almost immediately, we could see that she felt at home. We ended up becoming her family. She had always wanted children, but was never able to have any. And so my kids visited her, they played board games with her, and they drew pictures with her. She visibly relaxed, and right before she passed, she commented that she finally felt like she belonged. Greg was a young father. The family was struggling to make ends meet, with his wife being the only person that was able to work. He had battled cancer for 10 years and he was nearing the end of his journey. He needed 24/7 care, but was unable to afford it. Every day, his 8-year-old daughter would come home from school and find her dad screaming out in pain. She would try to comfort him by singing him hymns. When we were finally able to bring Greg to Pappas House, his pain was still very difficult to manage, but because he was able to receive the constant care, he was finally able to relax. When his daughter visited, instead of seeing her dad crying in pain, she saw him lying comfortably in a bed. And in his final moments, she laid in the bed next to him, holding him tight and singing softly until he took his last breath. And because hospice doesn't always mean the end, we too have had a few of our residents discharged from hospice. And I'd like to share a quick story about Don. So Don came to us about a month ago. He had a severe brain bleed. He was signed on to hospice and he arrived at Pappas House unconscious. Over the next week, family surrounded him. And I mean a lot of family. Our living room was full of family members, grandchildren, children, nieces and nephews, and his beloved cat, Aslan. His family enticed him with smells of his favorite foods, the sounds of their conversation and laughter, and slowly but surely, Don began improving to the point where he was transferred off of hospice care and into a rehab facility. And today, probably right around this time, Don is returning home. So Pappas House started very humbly. We opened in a rented 3-bedroom home to test the model in our community. But very quickly, as Amy said, we realized that this model of care is going to become highly sought after. For the past 3 years, we've operated with a continual waiting list. And so we are so excited, so excited to be moving to new destinations. We're in the midst of a $3 million capital campaign to expand to an 8-bedroom home on the property located at 66 Big Mount Road in Thomasville. So hopefully that waiting list will become smaller and we'll be able to more adequately help our community members. I'm going to pause there and ask if there's any questions. Jane? So Jane asked if Medicare covers Pappas House stays, and the answer to that is no. Medicare covers the hospice benefit, but anytime an individual elects the hospice benefit, they do not cover room and board. So Pappas House is seen as the room and board portion of that. Yes.
Once you're in the new facility, do you expect to continue to operate in the 3-bedroom house?
That is a very good question. The question was, once we're in the 8-bed home, will we continue to operate the 3-bedroom home? And the 3-bedroom home is John's next to you. And the question is, or the answer is, for a small amount of time at least, we don't plan to have to physically move our residents over to the new property. So there'll be some overlap for a short while at least. Sure. Beth asked if we would describe what's in the new home. So you may recognize the building as the old SPCA building out in Thomasville. We are maintaining the 2-story brick structure. The either side of the wings will be demolished, and we are building 4 bedrooms on each side. We realized over the past 4.5 years that most of our residents really want to spend the time in their bedrooms with the family. It's a very private time. And so we are equipping the bedrooms to be large enough to accommodate family members that want to stay over. Each will have its own private bathroom. In between each of the private bathrooms, there'll be a shower room where we will actually be able to transfer our patients into a wheeled shower bed and give them a full bath with water running over them versus just a sponge bath and a bed. There's just something to be said about having running water and your hair washed. And so that's something that we're looking forward to. There will also be, of course, a very large kitchen, a very large dining room and great room, because again, families congregate in the home areas. There'll be a spiritual room as well as a kids play area, so that when children visit, they'll have their own private space to kind of escape to if they need to. Oh, yes, and patios. Each of the bedrooms will have their own private patio with French doors that open up so that we can roll the beds out even for the bed-bound individuals. Again, something to be said about seeing the sun and the stars. Yes. Sure. So the question is, if this is such a good model, why are we the only one in the state? And the answer is, it's costly. It's a difficult model to start up initially. We've been very, very blessed with a community that has supported us, and we've tested the model of care, and folks have realized that it's important, and so they've supported it. I think as word spreads, more homes will open. I get calls at least once a month with groups that are interested in starting a home, and so they come and they tour our house and just kind of pick my brain in terms of how they need to start up. So hopefully we won't be the only one soon. Oh, okay. Do you collaborate with other hospice organizations? Because there are other hospitals that have. Sure. So the question was, how do we collaborate with other hospice agencies and other organizations like ours? So we work with all of the hospice agencies. There are some other homes similar to ours across the United States, and we belong to a networking group called the Omega Home Network. There's about 50 some members nationwide. We get together for conferences, monthly conference calls, and just share ideas. The similarity between all of us is that we are all independently owned nonprofit organizations run by a combination of paid staff and volunteers, and we work with any of the hospice agencies. Thank you.
Amy and Amy, thank you so much for sharing that heartwarming story of what you're doing in our community, the model that it represents, and just how poignant it is that people can die in a dignified manner in the way in which they choose. So thank you for providing that incredible care. And we wish you continued success in your new home, soon to be. So Amy and Amy signed the book, Two Little Trains by Margaret Wise Brown, which we will present to York Academy Regional Charter School. And next week, our program is titled Bias, the Brain Science and Business Case. Today, it's almost impossible to turn on the television, read a news post, or engage in company training that doesn't have the title of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But what's behind these terms? What are the implications for business revenue and expansion when it comes to bias? Join Rotarian CJ Gross for an intriguing discussion about the brain science behind bias and its implication on business initiatives. CJ is the founder, chief executive officer of Ascension Worldwide, a consulting firm committed to helping clients achieve workplace inclusion, employee and client diversity, and innovative growth opportunities. In closing, our quote is by author David Searles. Seeing death as the end of life is like seeing the horizon as the end of the ocean. I hope you have an incredible rest of your week. This meeting is adjourned.